Hi students, today we are going to finish our analysis of the poem On Turning 10 by Billy Collins. Your learning objective for today is to explain the connotations of specific word choices using the phrase in particular. Here, connotations means the feelings or the deeper meaning that we get from the words. So can you please take 1 minute now to copy down the lesson objective. We will look at the use of the phrase in particular a little bit later. Okay, our vocabulary for today, which you've already seen in your lesson, is normal and abnormal, the adjectives. But you will also find this versatile vocabulary very useful today. So make sure that you look back through your notes and find the meanings of any of these words if you're not sure how to use them. So we want to use perpetual and intermittent. Perpetual meaning never ending or seeming to never end, and intermittent meaning stop-start in an irregular way. Permanent and ephemeral are going to be very important words for looking at this poem. Transformative and tangible. We might also be able to use intangible, which I might add. If you would like to pause the tape and check your notes to find the meaning of any of those words, that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, let's have a look at what our lesson is going to look like today. So, we're going to start as usual with a writing warm-up using our versatile vocabulary. Then we're going to move on to a thesis statement, similar to the thesis statements you've already written for your other poems. I'm going to go through an example paragraph with you about this poem, using the phrase in particular, and we will look quickly at how to use that phrase together. And then you are going to complete 2 paragraphs with sentence starters given to you about 2 other quotes from our poem. Please copy down now the question that we are going to be answering today. This is the same question that we looked at last lesson when we looked at this poem. So we are going to explore how a poet presents the fear brought on by change in childhood using metaphor and contrast. And those 2 words are really important. Every quote that we are going to pull from the poem today should be either a metaphor or show some kind of contrast so that we are always answering our question. Just 1 minute to copy that question down and make sure you've got it in a place that you can quickly look at it if you need to. Okay, so our writing warm-up, let's jump right in. We have 5 sentences with versatile vocabulary to warm up today. So number 1, the speaker in the poem realises that childhood is not a perpetual state because, now remember, perpetual means ongoing, never ending, or seeming to never end. So how has the speaker realised that childhood is going to end? Number 2, the speaker thinks that ageing will permanently disfigure him because, we looked at the word disfigure in some detail last lesson. Remember, disfigure is similar to scarring or permanently changing a person, usually for the worst, almost always for the worst. Right. Number 3, the title suggests that turning 10 is a transformative event because the speaker's imagination was tangible because, and for this question, please look at your notes from last lesson because you will find the quote from the poem where we said that his imagination was tangible, and you can use that in your answer. And number 5, the speaker's fear of ageing could be considered abnormal because. There is one other character who is referred to in the poem. That's in stanza 2. That might help you to answer this question. So why is the speaker's fear of aging possibly abnormal? You have 5 minutes to answer these questions. Good luck. Off you go. 1 more minute. If you need a little bit more time, don't worry, just pause the video. Okay, we're going to move on, but please make sure that you have answered these questions and you keep the answers handy because they're going to link really strongly to our thesis statement and our paragraphs. So your answers are really going to help you. So let's start off with our thesis statement for today. Okay. So again, I have the question here, make sure you have it in a place where you can read it. Explore how a poet presents the fear brought on by change in childhood using metaphor and contrast. So our thesis statement can take the same pattern as your previous ones. So in the poem On Turning 10, Collins, who is our poet, explores the idea of what? Now, we always need to look at the question to find the big idea that we need to explore. So in this poem, in this question, we can see that the idea we want is the fear brought on by change in childhood. It's quite a long, wordy idea. If you want to use synonyms to break that down into something smaller, please do. Then we're going to add 3 smaller ideas breaking down that big idea. So it reveals what? Idea 2, and finally idea 3. So have a look at your writing warm-up questions and answers, and you can also look back at the annotations that we made last lesson on the poem to help you with this. I'll give you 3 minutes. Good luck. Okay. Hopefully you've got your thesis statement down. Everyone is going to have slightly different ideas, but remember, the big idea that we want to talk about today is this one. So focus on what we have spoken about in this poem, connected with fear of change and how the speaker is reacting to that. Okay, so our writing task today is going to follow the same pattern that you have been building up to in your previous lessons. So we're going to start off with one of your classy topic sentences. We're going to include a short quote from the poem. We're going to explain our point using the phrase in brief or in short. And then we're going to zoom in on a specific word using the phrases in particular or more specifically. Last time you had a writing lesson on poetry, you looked at using the word more specifically to do this. In particular is a phrase which can be used interchangeably with more specifically. So it means exactly the same thing, and now you can just in your first paragraph use in particular, in your second paragraph use more specifically, to mix it up a little bit and make your writing less repetitive. So let's have a look at an example paragraph, and this one is following the pattern that you can see above, but looking instead of a quote at the title of the poem, because the title has a really nice contrast in it to start. So clearly Collins first presents the speaker as frightened and emotional, getting our versatile vocabulary in, about ageing through the contrast in the title on turning 10. So that's our topic sentence to start. Moving on to the explanation, we have the phrase in brief. The serious tone suggested by starting the title with on in the tradition of romantic poetry is juxtaposed with the silliness of the age 10, revealing that this is a change the speaker is taking seriously. This is where we move on to our zoom sentence. In particular, the verb turning suggests a transformative event which would appear normal to be unsettled by. I think your teacher is going to snip a picture of this example paragraph and put it in the chat for you so that you can refer to it. Or you can take your own screenshot now so that you have this to look at while you are writing your own paragraphs. That would be a really good idea. So, thinking about the way we start each of our sentences, making sure we include lots of other versatile vocabulary, we are going to get going on your own 2 paragraphs. So, your first paragraph, we would like you to use the quote, "a disfiguring chickenpox of the soul." So let's have a look at the start of this paragraph that you are going to finish. Evidently, as a synonym for clearly, the speaker's fear that childhood is ephemeral is shown to be a deep fear in stanza 1 through the metaphor, a disfiguring chickenpox of the soul. In short, this shows what? So we want to explain how the speaker saying a disfiguring chickenpox of the soul reveals his fear of aging and growing up. And the versatile vocabulary you might find useful here is permanent, interior, and tangible. Once you have explained the quote, then you are going to choose one word to zoom in on. and use the phrase more specifically and explain the connotations of that word. Your last paragraph will start finally. The speaker's fear is reinforced, and then we'd like you to choose your own quote. Last lesson, we looked at the quote about the soldier and the prince together, but then you annotated 2 quotes yourself. The last line of the poem, I skin my knees, I bleed, would be a really good choice to finish off your this short analysis to use in this paragraph. But if you didn't analyse that last lesson, you can choose any other quote that you think shows a contrast or has a metaphor and shows that the speaker is afraid of this change in his life. Then we're going to explain with in brief this shows, and make sure you use lots of your versatile vocabulary. And then we're going to zoom in on a particular word. In particular, choose your word from the quote and explain the connotations. Okay, while you are doing this, please make sure you keep looking back at the question to make sure you are addressing it. Look at your writing warm-up sentences, as they have lots of the ideas that you need to use to answer this essay question correctly. And check that you are always using lots of your versatile vocabulary. Okay, good luck everybody.